With that down, though, guys, let's get into our first topic. And our first topic here is going to be, like I said, we got some Snyder Cut information. Starting off with one, we got a release date for it. Well, kind of a release date. We at least have the release month, so it's coming out in March of 2021, and which is a little bit sooner than I expected.
Yeah, that's pretty soon.
So, like, I'm being a fan of what Snyder's done in the DC universe. You know, for the most part, I'm pretty happy about it coming out that early. I did not expect it to be that soon, just given the amount of I don't know, the amount of work that seemed to have had to be put into it to get it done. It does seem like it's kind of soon. On top of that, there was some information coming out from Zach himself that he's kind of saying that it could presumably be rated R, which I don't really know how necessary that is. And based on what he even says in this kind of interview, it definitely doesn't seem like it's very necessary to be rated R. It's like Batman says like an F-bomb or two, so I don't really think that's needed, in all honesty. And then the other thing that I guess could make it needed was that he goes on to add that like Steppenwolf is just cutting people in half like everywhere, which I'm fine with that. We can keep that in. We can keep that in and get the R rating if we need to. And then he's also working on a remaster of Batman vs Superman to be like re-edited in the IMAX format that is supposed to be dropping prior to the launch of the Snyder Cut of Justice League. So I'm pretty excited about that, in all honesty, because I don't know, I like being able to watch stuff in that format because you lose the black bars, you know, on your big old TVs, and it's just one nice big clean image, and it looks great. And I recently just actually rewatched Batman vs Superman when I got my new TV. For whatever reason, it was one of the movies I decided to go ahead and rewatch. It was the ultimate cut, and you know, I thought it was pretty good. Like I was never one of those people who hated that movie to begin with, but I recognize the problems with the movie for sure. Definitely recognize the problems. And I have my own issues with it, but overall, I like the film. Like I said, I've liked pretty much everything Zack Snyder has done with DC stuff for the most part. Like Man of Steel, incredible.
That was
movie.
Good.
Incredible movie. Well, it's my favorite DCEU movie or DCU movie, whatever you want to call it, whatever they're trying to call it at this point.
By far, yeah.
There's nothing that's been better. Like, and honestly, surprisingly, I'd say Shazam was probably my second favorite, then Wonder Woman. That's pretty much how I keep it. Then after that, you kind of could put whatever you want there. In all honesty, kind of some are better than others. Like, I don't know, but what do you guys think about it coming out and Snyder Cut Justice League coming out in March, and then this possible R rating? You guys got any thoughts on this?
I'm surprised it's coming out so soon.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have expected that.
Oh yeah, for sure. Are you excited for it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see how much it differs from Justice League. You know, the Justice League, as you call it,
Justice League for sure.
Yeah. I'm excited. Same reasons. I'm eager to see it. I'm glad it's March. There was a part of me when you started hearing about them bringing actors back for reshoots, and you started hearing about the amount of money that was needed to add in all the visual effects that they needed to do. There was a part of me that was worried this was going to be like a November, December type release for HBO Max, and I'm glad that it's not going to be quite that long. I wonder how much of this was already underway by the time they announced the deal. If Zach had already been working on it for a few months at that point, and so they were a little ahead in the game for it. I also think, I haven't pinned my hopes to making that date. I realize that things could come up to push that date, and until HBO Max or officially puts out a trailer with the date on it, I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, we just talked about how you mentioned he's doing a cut of BVS in the IMAX format. I mean, Zack Snyder is going to be a very busy man over the next 8 weeks if he's trying to hit a March date, 8 to 10 weeks if he's trying to hit a March date for that, plus get out a new cut of BVS. So that's kind of my feelings on the release date. As far as the R rating goes, That might be just Zach being Zach. Zach seems to want to be more edgy or hardcore stuff, which
Right.
works wonders for him in certain circumstances. I think it also hinders him a little bit in some things. So I don't know that it's necessary. I mean, Batman dropping an F-bomb here or there, that's okay, sure. I mean, I could see him being angry and doing it once in a while. I mean, Lord knows the Dark Knight Returns, which is one of the seminal comic book stories of all time, he gets a little salty with his language.
I feel like it'd be him about to like get like hit by something, and he's like, and it's more of a surprise, like, oh fuck, you know what I mean?
Well, didn't he do that in BVS?
Yeah, but they cut it. But they cut the thing right before he actually says it. Yeah,
sure.
I don't know why, but in my head, that's what I'm picturing. Because I just don't picture even Ben Affleck's Batman being like, "Fuck you," you know? I don't see that. Like, but who knows? Who knows?
Well, I mean, the other thing is too that I guess HBO Max, since it's streaming, might not care as much about what rating it ends up getting. But if they do, if they're worried about parents like staying away from letting their kids watch, or if they want it to be teen friendly and they're worried about that, you're, from everything I've heard, you're allowed one F-bomb in a movie. So Zach may still, even with an F-bomb and even with if Steppenwolf is cutting people, like real humans, in half, that's one thing. But if he's cutting like aliens in half in like the battle that takes place years ago, and that's the carnage that Zach's talking about, sometimes they can blur those lines about what constitutes real violence, and they might be able to push the boundaries of a PG-13 with something like that. So, again, but with both the date and the rating, I'm taking them both with a grain of salt, and we'll see in the coming weeks what gets released officially.
Not to mention, too, there was another article. It may have been in the same interview that, or not, I can't remember, but Zach was mentioning that he was wanting to try to get a theatrical release for the Snyder Cut as well, which I don't know how feasible that even is, just given the state of the theater industry right now. But if anything, if they were actually pushing for that in any capacity, the R rating would, I feel like, be a detractor at that point.
Sure.
Because it's like, why do you want to? It's kind of like the Harley Quinn movie. Like they made that R rated just for the sake of being R rated, and they just had a couple F-bombs in there. Really,
was that all it was? Like,
that's literally all it was.
Just words. Fuck.
So it's like, they could have just, because Harley was like breaking the fourth wall in that, they could have just bleeped those out to not be rated R. Like, just had the dialogue be there, but literally just have the whole come up just to give it the PG-13 so more people could go see it. Like, but I don't know.
It would have been kind of a little bit more humorous too, just because she's, like you said, she's breaking the fourth wall. It wouldn't have been that distracting from the movie.
No, and then because that was the one thing with that movie that I don't know. I feel like there's so many like young girls who like look up to Harley Quinn. Like, not that she's the greatest role model, but they're like fans of the character. So I don't know, looking up.
There's a certain empowerment aspect with her. She takes things into her own hands and handles things. So yeah, I definitely see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty, like even just trick or treating wise, like even like this past year. I saw one little girl who was dressed up as Harley Quinn who couldn't have been 5 or 6 years old, and it's like she couldn't go see that movie. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, she could if her parents took her to it, but I don't know. Probably would have been disappointed either way, really, because it wasn't the greatest of the DC movies, in all honesty. So R rating didn't really help it all that much. But the question is, guys, what do you think? Or do you got more to add, John?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was just going to.
You
did when you said something about Snyder really doing the theatrical release. It may hurt it, but theaters are so starved for content, and it really doesn't look like we're getting anything. Nothing I know of has been announced until like May, I think, is when maybe Widow comes back, and that's one of the first big movies. So theaters may welcome Zach's movie into their cineplexes, regardless of what it is, and they may be able to generate. If they could generate another 20 to 30 million off of a limited box office release for a month or two, they may do that just to recoup some of those costs. And although then you're taking the exclusivity away from HBO Max, which they're trying to drive. That's a whole conundrum. I don't even know how you
Yeah.
navigate.
Sounds
Well, that's
like
why,
it.
I think in this situation even more, the R rating would hurt the theaters, you know? Because there's already so little theaters that are open. The ones that are open, they have to be at half capacity, and then even with them being at half of capacity, people in most places aren't that interested in going out and putting themselves in the situation to begin with, now because the pandemic's pretty much the worst it's ever been. So you're having
True.
less and less and less and less people even willing to go to the theater at this point. So then when you slap well, this is R-rated, kind of more of another hindrance, another obstacle for the viewers, in all honesty, at that point, so it's like you're gonna get even less revenue in the theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when it really comes down to it, because you're segregating the market even more than it needs to be. Not that like any other time it wouldn't be a problem. Like Joker was R-rated, made $1 billion. Different time, but and then the Deadpool movies R-rated, make almost $1 billion. But it's just in this situation when you're looking at actually trying to get like revenue from it, put in an unnecessary quote unquote rated like R rating on it. I just feel like it's a detractor more, especially just because like the movie, I haven't seen the Snyder Cut of Justice League, but I don't feel like there's any way it possibly needs an R rating for the story
Yeah.
to be like told. It
Yeah.
just doesn't. I haven't seen it, but I mean,
You
I've
wouldn't
seen
think
plenty.
so.
Do what?
I said you wouldn't think so. I mean, like with a movie like that, it's not
I mean, I've
something-
seen almost everything that DC has ever made in any capacity, and like most of it's not R-rated. So
No.
this definitely doesn't need to be R-rated. As much as I would love like to see the R-rated version of like everything, I'd love to have R-rated versions of literally everything. Like I think
Star Wars.
yeah, like R-rated Star Wars. That's what the I don't know if you guys have ever watched like Corridor Crew on. They do like the VFX artists react,
Yeah.
like that kind of thing.
I watched it with you.
Good channel, go check it out. Corridor Crew on YouTube. And but anyway, they make their VFX artists themselves, and they made like an R-rated MCU like thing, like a little short thing where they took scenes from the MCU with like Cap throwing his shield, for instance, and when it just hits somebody and bounces off, like in reality it would have cut them in half given the terminal velocity it's going. So they would like actually VFX that in and make that happen.
They did that with Star Wars too.
They did, yeah.
Yeah, where it was like super gory when somebody would get shot or something.
Yeah, exactly. And it's I would like to see that. Like it's fun to see, especially when it's more. I mean, it's more accurate, really.
Yeah.
I mean,
it is.
You know what I mean? It's obviously though, and it goes to show, like, kind of like leans more to my point of where it's definitely not necessary. Like we know when Cap throws a shield at somebody, it should cut them in half. But you don't have to make it cut them in half.
No.
You know, that's like in Christopher Nolan's Batman movies; they just don't show any blood. People get shot, nothing happens. You know, and it's
Yeah.
like that's how it's a very, which is also another thing about the MPA, because it's like you can have a ton of violence, but as soon as you show blood, that's like too much, guys. Or
Look at Star Wars with Revenge of the Sith. Or is that
what about Sith?
like that? When Anakin gets burnt in that movie, he
Yeah.
looks like shit. Like it's
Toasty.
bloody and it's
Yeah.
gory and it's gross. Like that was what rated PG-13.
Yeah.
PG-13.
Well, it's always that's what I'm saying. They play the thing fast and loose because that's like one shot, and that's the only shot that's like it. It's kind of like you can have one F-bomb.
Yeah.
And like a PG, and still keeps PG-13. If you have one scene that's a little questionable, then like at the beginning of Endgame, Thor decapitates Thanos. It's just that one shot though, and like
Yeah.
you don't actually like
See it.
See it. It's just real quick camera cut, but like you see it happen. Like you see his body roll over and stuff. Like you see enough of it to know like the dude just got his head cut off. But it's just that one scene, so they can keep the rating. You know, I don't know. This kind of went off into a whole MPA discussion. But either way, it's all relevant information in some capacity. But guys, let us know what you think about this news. Zack Snyder's Snyder Cut's coming out in March. Do you think it's going to keep that release date? Do you think it's going to be rated R? Do you think it needs to be rated R? What? I mean, I'm interested in seeing it rated R. So, like I said, I don't really think it needs to be, but I'm totally fine with it coming out as a rated R thing, because I guess seeing Steppenwolf cut people in half is going to be fun in some capacity. I don't know if that's kind of morbid or what, but either way, let us know what you think down in the comment section below.